Happy Monday. Happy Monday, y'all. I'm very excited to be here with you. Happy Monday. Hey, thank you for joining me. I'm gonna give folks a few more minutes to get in here. But hi, Noah. Hey, Stiletto Studio. Hey, Blessed Hands. Who's that? Hey there. Hey, Linda. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Noah. It's super good to have you all here with me. I'm super excited. Lives, I really appreciate doing lives, but they definitely make me a little bit nervous. Things are a little more unscripted than normal, but we're gonna work with it. And if y'all have questions for me, I think there's a little situation here that I can. Okay, so if you have questions, I think there's a little spot that you can like drop questions, and then I will try to get to them as I can. So thank y'all for joining me today. My name is Rashida Conde Miller. You can call me Rashi. My pronouns are she, her, and temptress. I love all of those. And I am the creator of the Messy Movement Lab. I'm an artist, I'm an educator, I'm a speaker. And in relationship to this conversation, we're going to be talking about my work with erotic dance and self-care as a healing practice. And if you haven't gotten a chance to see some of the work that's been going on the last month, I've been hosting a mini course called Pleasure is Our Fuel, Not a Reward. And it's really an opportunity for people who are new to the practice or who are new to working with me or who are really trying to get an understanding of like, how can erotic dance be healing? Or, what is it that you're talking about with like pleasure as a fuel? And it's something that we should like do on a daily basis and not something we should like work our way up to for the beginning of the week or wait until the weekend until we get, until we allow ourselves an opportunity to rest or to play or to have a sense of, joy. Like, what does that even mean? And how does it actually fit into the landscape of my life? And that's something that I am super passionate about and really helping people understand, one, that pleasure is an inherent birthright that we all should have access to and that we can all have access to. There's just, tools and practices and processes that will help make it easier for you to access pleasure and for it to feel good and for it to actually be something that's integral to the way in which you experience a sense of radiance and aliveness in your day-to-day life. And so what I really love about this work and the way that this work has evolved over the last decade, but specifically within the last 3 to 5 years, is that the work around movement isn't centered in one having to show up to a specific dance space or having to get the counts right or having to, know the steps or really have this background in movement in order to actually enjoy the student-based part of the class, but really about connecting to our bodies in a way that feels good and allowing pleasure to be our guide and allowing our internal GPS to really give us to really give us kind of the way in to feeling a connection to ourselves, to feeling a sense of being at home, to kind of shedding some of the limiting beliefs and behaviors that keep us from experiencing our own pleasure, and giving us a new opportunity to create a different paradigm around how we actually want to live, breathe, and be in our bodies on a day-to-day basis. And so um just to give you a little bit of a backstory, for me, I started this work in about around 2011 ish. No, not 2011. Sorry, that's too far. 2008 ish, and I really started after I did a study abroad to Salvador de Bahia, Brazil. It was life changing for me. I've talked about this story many, many times. I'll have to share a link to an article or so where I share, more of the details about that journey and that trip. But essentially, came back from this experience in Brazil and just felt a new relationship to my body that I didn't feel like I'd been afforded growing up in the U.S. with this very white centric gaze around like what the body was supposed to look like, what beautiful was supposed to mean, what sexy was supposed to look like. I was in Brazil and I was surrounded by all of these women who had varying body types, but I was seeing women who looked like me, walking down the beach in full on string bikinis, and they were good. Like they were just in their body. It wasn't like this big production. They didn't there wasn't this whole rigmarole or show or whatever. And it just having that experience and seeing other women that looked like me, being in that space definitely informed the way in which I knew I wanted to live in my body going forward. And so I decided that, when I came back from my study abroad, that I was going to start teaching classes because one, I'd been teaching and studying dance I've been studying dance for about 15 years at that point. Like I've been dancing pretty much all my life. My mom put me in dance at a really early age as a way to cope with some of the anxiety that I was having as a kid. And she also wanted to provide me with a space to feel more confident and to, really hone something that was other than just being up under her. And so, thank you, Mom. And so, at that point, I had been dancing pretty much all my life. I'd studied with some of some of the best choreographers that you could have ever come across, especially in Chicago, from jazz to Horton to ballet to lyrical and liturgical dance, or as we call in the Black church, praise dance. And contemporary dance, and then I got a chance to study capoeira and Brazilian samba. And so it was just this ongoing journey that just kind of led me in this direction of making the decision to go back to Brazil. So I had actually been to Brazil when I was about 12 or 13. My mom took us on a trip with our church to Brazil. We went to I believe we went to Sao Paulo, or it was either Rio or Sao Paulo, and then we also definitely did Salvador de Bahia. And so I knew that when I was doing my study abroad, I had loved Brazil so much and had really fallen in love with the culture, and then was also in school studying samba and capoeira again randomly. And I was like, I feel like this is the place where I'm being drawn to, and then was there and then had this really pivotal experience with my body and also my relationship to spirituality. And so I'm not going to go into that right now, but I will share a link to some of the interviews or articles that I've done where I go into more detail about that experience. But that changed really the trajectory of how I knew I wanted to live and be in my body going forward. And so I came back and I started teaching classes, and those classes really took on a life of their own. What started out as just being a space for people to come and be in their bodies and just exist. And we would, we did all manner of things, to like, really kind of conjure up this energy of like unapologetic freedom. And it really just took on a life of its own. And then, over the course of the last, 10 years, I've taught classes across the city of Chicago. And then within the last 3 to 5 years, I've been teaching classes across the country, and really getting an opportunity to meet the people who were expressing interest for this work in person, and for us to get a chance to be in the space together, to just move. It was a half day intensive for most of this tour. And it was really a life-changing experience to be in the space and get a chance to dance with so many of you, in ways that I had always dreamed of it happening, but I didn't know how it was exactly going to get rolling. And so what I realized in that space was that I didn't want people to come to the class and then leave. And after forget the steps or forget the experience or forget whatever, then you don't really have a way to access this work. Like you don't have the tangible tools or practices or, understanding to be able to do this work at home, right? Because the conferences that you're going to, the experiences that you're going to live, the retreats, the coaching classes, etc., like they should always have a component that goes home with you, right? It should never be this thing where it's like the only valuable piece of the experience is actually being in the room. Like, how do we make it so that when you get home, you can actually kind of change and reroute the pathways that are at home so that you can continue to cultivate this experience, so that the next time that you come back, you can dive even deeper instead of start over from the beginning. And so when I realized this at the beginning of the tour, I was starting to see some people who were like willing to travel across state lines. Some people have flown in from out of the country. They would, fly to a different city to come take class. And I really appreciated that energy. And I saw that as they were having this repetitious experience, that they were, that their embodiment of the practice just became deeper. But for those people who weren't, necessarily able to have access to come, multiple times, or to have other experiences with the work, if they did get a chance to come back and it was probably like some time or space stretched out, it was almost like starting from the beginning, kind of unlearning some of the same spaces of resistance, unlearning some of the same obstacles. And I really wanted to make sure that when you left this class, when you leave this actual dance floor, that you know that there's a way to embody this practice when you go home. And so that really led me to the beginning of our journey to create the Messy Movement Lab. And the Messy Movement Lab is a digital hub that that offers digital courses, experiences, coaching, practical tools, advice to help you really tap into a space of self-nourishment, self-intimacy, and self-reverence. And all of this is designed to make sure that you're coming back to a place of pleasure, rest, and radiance in your own life, but giving you the tools to be able to fit this work into the messiness of your day-to-day life. Like, our lives are not set up like some perfect Instagram self-care production. Like, it's not, always having, hours on end to be able to do this work. It's not always, having ample space for someone to deliver flowers and, to deliver all of your spa treats, and there's a chef cooking the meals, and da 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 da. Like, these may all be desires that we have, for the future, but we have to really look at the reality of our lives right now. Like, what is actually tangible to us? And I really love the process of the Messy Movement Lab, because it gives us the permission to fit the practices that we're learning into literally the pockets of space that we have available to us, whether that's your bed when you're waking up, your bathroom, your hallway, the side of the bed, the backyard, the car, wherever you can find the space. It's about taking that 5 minutes. It's about 5 minutes at a time, giving yourself the opportunity to really tap into a space where you feel like you're being filled up. So that brings me to why I created pleasure is our fuel and not a reward. It's a mini course, and it's a way to give you kind of like an intro into what it's like to be a member of the lab. So it's a drop-in course, and it's static. It's your experience, it's self-study, you get to do it at your own pace. But the point is that you get a chance to really see, like, what are some of the practices that we're doing? What is it like to work with me as an erotic dance and self-care teacher? What will that look like in terms of how can you fit this into your life, in terms of like making time for it, having the privacy for it, being able to like justify doing something that is really just about rest and playfulness, and not necessarily about, being productive in the traditional sense, which is really hard for a lot of people, especially right now, considering that we're all navigating an extremely intense experience of chaos and and crisis and loss and grief, and trying to tap into a sense of playfulness when there's so much grief and there's so much loss and there's so much uncertainty is really challenging. And I really want to I just want to reinforce that if it feels somewhat impossible to be able to access right now, that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not off. You haven't fallen off your practice. You haven't, you're not fucked up. Like you're just fine. Like when trauma can really pull us away from a sense of playfulness, because in an experience of trauma, we're trying to do everything that we can to find stable ground, and taking time away from what feels like stable ground, which might be sitting in front of Netflix and watching this, a show until like 5 seasons of a show, or working from sun up to sundown, or busying yourself with doing like things around the house, whatever things feel for your body and your muscle memory, like stability, like safety, like home, like, like a sense of like, okay, I can predict what's coming next, is what we're naturally going to go to when we're in a deep experience of crisis. I'm going to pause just for a second. So I want to make sure that I don't lose my connection here. Thank you all for being patient with me. And so our bodies are naturally going to go to the thing that will provide us the sense of safety. And so oftentimes trying to tap into a sense of pleasure, trying to tap into a sense of, just like fun feels really threatening to that. It's like, okay, well, fun in what way? Can you tell me exactly what that looks like? And it can be really hard to kind of let go of what feels like the stable thing in order to tap into something different. And so I just want to bring that into the space. Like, if you aren't finding yourself able to rest, if you aren't finding yourself able to, be gentle, if you're not finding yourself able to like get out of like being productive or working or whatever, like, just have grace with yourself, because we're all trying to figure out how to navigate something that we've never been through. I personally have never been through a pandemic. I don't know what it's like, literally for life to shut down so that we can stay healthy. And so it's just it's a new space that we're all operating in. And so that means that we've got to have a lot of grace with ourselves in the way that we figure out how we're going to embody this space, whether you are killing it and crushing it in your business, or you're killing it at work, or like you've cooked meals every night, or you've zoned out to Netflix, like you're doing just fine. Like, please give yourself the grace to just try to figure this thing out in the best way for you. And as you find the practices that feel in alignment with your journey and your desires for healing and for growth, that's when you'll start to kind of peel away at the things that are a hindrance or an obstacle to you being able to experience more pleasure. So I love to talk about pleasure from this idea that, like, if we're thinking about a car, right, and we're going to drive this car 100,000 miles, right, and I don't know cars cars at all. So I've been using the example of like a Nissan Altima, okay? So forgive me if that's like not a durable car or something like that, but please feel free to replace it with whatever car feels in alignment with your vision. So, but like we've got a Nissan Altima and we want to drive this Nissan Altima like 100,000 miles and probably within the next year, right? Next year, next 2 years, whatever, right? Well, we know for a fact that if we don't get oil changes, if we don't check the air tire pressure, if we put cheap gas in the car, that what's going to happen to the car? The car's ultimately going to break down. It's ultimately going to stop. Like it's not going to be able to run in the ways that we know that it should run to be able to, have like in order for the car to keep moving, right? And we operate in the same ways. But the difference is between us and a Nissan Altima is that we can really see the difference, the tangible difference in like what's needed in order for that thing to keep going. We don't necessarily look at ourselves in the same way. We don't necessarily look at our self-care practices, our pleasure practices, our play practices as a fuel or as a check-in or as an oil change or as like changing out a flat tire or making sure there's even air in the tire, right? So that you don't get a blowout or whatever. We don't necessarily look at ourselves in the same way. And that's the shift that we really have to make in order to understand that pleasure is a fuel and not a reward that we're like working towards. Like your car doesn't have to work towards getting gas, right? Like it's just a necessity in order for the car to keep moving, right? You're not like, oh, if you get me to where I need to go, at least for a majority of the week, I'll reward you with a little bit of fuel. Like I'll maybe put some gas in the car. Maybe I'll even clean off the windshield wipers. You know what I'm saying? Like you deserve that. Like, but the bare minimum is that you must at least get me to and from work, for the next 2 weeks. And then we'll see if I'm going to put some gas in you. Like it would be asinine to think about it in that way, but that's the way that we think of our own selves, right? We're like, oh, well, if I get all of the things done on my to-do list, then I'll stop and rest. Or if I, if I answer all those emails that are backed up, then I'll allow myself to go take a walk. Or, and sometimes even our self-care practices become a part of the to-do list, and then we attach a different reward to it. So, like your self-care practice might be working out. Like if I work out, then I'll allow myself to go and, do something else. Like, and this kind of like punitive relationship to how we nourish ourselves doesn't allow for us to ever get full. It keeps us in this space of deficit and longing and uncertainty about how we're actually going to, when are we ever actually going to get a sense of rest? Like if, and I often hear people say, well, I've got 1,000 things to do. Like I've got the kids, I've got work, I've got this, I've got that, I got my mom, I got this and this, and and I'm like, okay, I understand. And that is very real. And I'm all about speaking from your own experience. And so I try to make sure that I'm not like critiquing, so to speak, how someone in a situation gets into a self-care practice if that's not the experience that I'm having in my own life, right? But I will say on the very basis of all of it, there has to be a sense of demand in our spirit and in our mind and in our body that we must have at least 5 minutes to ourselves every day. There has to be a space for 5 minutes. And if there's not a space for 5 minutes, we have to find actively an opportunity to kind of figure out where we can move some things around so that we can get to that 5 minutes. And when we think about it as 5 minutes at a time, we really get out of this idea that we have to that the only valuable, spiritual work or self-care work is when we can sit down and do hours of self-care, hours of meditating, hours of, movement classes, and then suddenly we're fueled up. But it's really the little increments of time that make the most difference. Maybe it's 5 minutes right when you literally wake up your eyes and you just stretch in bed. Maybe it's 5 minutes to take a walk, 5 minutes to talk with a friend, 5 minutes to just listen to a song on repeat a couple times. It's really about just finding just the tiniest pieces of tiniest moments to really give ourselves an opportunity to say, hey, I am valuable in the midst of all of the things that I'm doing in my life. And if I can't find time to put 5 minutes of my own energy into my own body, then I'm running at the wall. I'm essentially running at the wall at 100 miles an hour, and there's no way in hell I'm not going to crash. And that's essentially what we're accepting when we feel like we can't find or we won't find that 5 minutes of time. And the self-care practice doesn't always have to look the same. Your fueling up doesn't always have to look the same. You may not want to dance every day. You may not want to pray every day. You may not want to meditate every day. But the point is that you find something that allows for you the opportunity to actually be able to refuel so that you can come out of that experience feeling like you have more capacity, more energy for yourself, and that you can start the process of being able to stack up that energy so you can give from your overflow. And I love to bring this quote from Ayan Van Zant into the space every time I teach, because I think it is so valuable, and it's such a great anchor for this conversation around pleasure. It's when we give, we are trying to make sure that we're getting ourselves back to a place where the tank is actually full, right? Like we've put a full, like a $40, $50, $60 tank of gas into ourselves. It's a full tank. So we know when the tank is full, we can run a little bit longer. The gas doesn't dwindle as fast because it's already fuel, but when there's less gas, the car's operating harder and it's using more fuel. Y'all see where I'm going? And so she talks about this idea of when we when we don't give from our overflow, we make the other person a thief. And every time I hear her say this, it like breaks something up. It breaks whatever resistance I'm having apart, because every time we take this opportunity to show up for someone else, to give to someone else, to make sure we're hitting whatever project, whatever goal, whatever, new thing that we've got on our plate, whenever we're showing up for the kids or our friends or work or whatever, but we're not slowing down to take that moment for ourselves, everyone around us becomes a thief. And then we get resentful, and then we get angry, and then we get tired, and then we get burnt out, and then we get frustrated, and then we don't have any energy for it, and then we lose our momentum, and then it gets to a spot where it's like, oh, like I actually don't enjoy this shit at all, like I'm just gonna stop altogether. Like it gets to this point where, again, we're running at the wall 100 miles an hour, so there's no way in hell that we're not going to crash. And so how do we get out of this space of running at the wall 100 miles an hour and feeling like there's no brakes? Like how do we get out of that space? Well, we have to value that taking that time for ourselves, taking that space for ourselves, taking that energy for ourselves is vital. It is not a reward. We're not, giving ourselves treats for existing and showing up and adulting and doing life. We're literally trying to make sure that we don't drop in the midst of doing all of the things that we're doing. We're making sure that that there is a substantial amount of fuel to be able to do the things that we're doing. And the more work that you're doing, the more energy that you're giving, the more that you're extending and allowing yourself to show up in other spaces or in showing up for other people, the more space you have to make for your connection to be refueled, for your body to be refueled, for your muscle memory to shed the things that are no longer in alignment with with the vision that you have for your life. You have have to make that space. The more that you're doing, the more you have to make the space. It's not the more you do, then the less space that you're able to take, and then you just steal the moment. It's no, the further the car is going, the more gas needs to be put in the tank. And that's just the bare minimum. And the longer that we go without refueling, we know that there are really detrimental effects to a car that is running on fumes or running on low gas or running in a space where it doesn't have an oil change. Like, what happens? The engine rots out, right? Or the engine stops altogether, or the car just shuts down, or whatever the case may be. Like, it just stops. And we have to understand that our bodies are no different. If we continue to run and move and give and show up and serve and do all of the things, but we're never taking the opportunity to slow down for ourselves, then eventually something's going to shut down. Something's going to stop. And there's really no way around that. So this idea of, cultivating rest and a sense of playfulness is really about stepping out of this framework and this mindset that we always have, that the only tangible sense of being productive is when we're working or when we're doing for other people. But and I will say for my own self, like, I will definitely get into a space, because also, let me back up and say that just because I'm teaching this work doesn't mean that I don't have obstacles, doesn't mean that I have mastered this in every single, facet of my life. It is, I teach this because I love this work and I find it to be valuable, and I know it is life-saving, and because I see the impact that it has had on my own life. But I am forever a student. I'm forever a student of rest. I'm forever a student of playfulness. I'm forever a student of learning and understanding and embodying pleasure. And that means that as my life evolves and as I grow and as I show up to serve more, as I do more in my business and give myself the opportunities that I want to have in my life, I'm forever a student of trying to figure out how do I come back home to my sense of pleasure, and how do I come back home to my body so that I can continue to do the things that really light me up, right? So like I'd noticed that I'd been having, some challenges around feeling, like I could slow down. And I was like, was doing some of my other practices that, didn't necessarily take as much time to be involved in, right? Like, it didn't really take as much time or energy for me to like set up and do. So I'd go outside and play a little cheap racquetball, like I call it. We got some like little racquetballs from the dollar store, so I do that. I got, like some Play-Doh, I'd light my candles. I'd have my, the little quick hits and stuff. But when it really came time to do some of my deeper rituals and practices, I noticed that there was like this hard resistance. But I'd pick up work, or I'd pick up, another task, and I could throw myself into it with full force and fury. Like I would just, head down, like, back arched, over the phone or sitting at the computer. And, and something just said to me like, well, if this thing is this valuable to you, wouldn't it make more sense that you'd stop for this more involved ritual, this more involved practice, and make more space for this so that you could show up and do this with more vigor, more energy, more fire, more clarity? And it was hard. And I'm not even going to say like, oh, my body was like, yes, I need this time. Like, you're so right. Like, thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God, for that message. I was like, shit. Okay. Like, like I definitely was like that little kid that's like, doesn't want to go to bed. You know what I mean? And so I reluctantly put my phone down, but then I realized I'm like, oh, I have to call myself into this practice. I have to call myself into this space of into this space of rest and of playfulness. It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to feel good, right? You know, sometimes I'm definitely someone who really enjoys being able to be productive in my work, or to get the things on my to-do list done, or to like have like tangible things that I can see. And so, that can be a challenge when it's time to do something that doesn't necessarily yield an immediate tangible result. But what I know is that if I'm like, a friend of mine and I were talking the other day, we talked about this idea of like tending to the garden. Like, if I'm tending to the garden consistently, if I'm tending to the garden on a regular basis, right? Like, I am, I'm pulling up the weeds, I'm making sure that the soil is actually like pliable and moist, and able to be receptive for the things that I'm pouring into it, right? Like, I can't pour, I can't pour I can't plant seeds into hard or fallow ground. Like, I have to plant the seeds into soil that is receptive and moist. And if my body is hardened, if my spirit is hardened, if my mind is hardened, if I think that the only way that I can get to my next goal is by pushing, or just like continuing to run at this wall 100 miles an hour, then I'm always going to be in this space where the work always comes first, or everything else always comes first. And then I begin to suffer or deteriorate because I'm not willing to take a look at the vessel that's actually being able to provide that sense of care or support or energy or love or attention, regardless of whether that's your professional work, your home life work, your relationship work, your children's work, like whatever that is. If I'm not valuing the vessel where that energy comes through, then that vessel begins to deteriorate, and there's no other way to look at it. There's no other way to look at it. And so you're getting into the practice isn't always going to feel easy. It's not always going to feel cute. It's not always going to be Instagrammable. It's not always going to be the thing that feels like the thing you should be doing right now. But every time when you come out of that practice, after you've had that time, and as you continue to pour into that space, you're always going to see the benefits of taking that time over time. You're always going to see what you've reaped from pouring into your garden in that way, or tending to your garden in that way over time. Like, you're never going to not see the benefits of taking time to slow down, taking time to have play, taking time to refuel. So today was really about giving us an opportunity to jump into this space. And I would love to open the floor for a few questions for these last 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll be back again this week, tomorrow at the same time. We're going to be going into a couple of the questions that I've received around like what makes it challenging for us to actually stick to a self-care practice, a pleasure practice that fits into, and then how do we fit those practices into the messiness of our day-to-day lives. So I'd love to open the floor for some questions. I'll see if there's any here. And if we don't have any, thank you all for joining me. I will be, for those of you who are interested in learning how to start integrating a self-care practice into your day-to-day life, you're really wanting to find ways to cultivate a sense of pleasure and rest that doesn't take up massive amounts of time, but really gives you tools that you can use, kind of on the fly. You can listen to some of the lectures, like while you're cooking dinner, or while you're taking a walk, or while you're walking the dog, or while you're cleaning up, or whatever the case may be. And the movement practices that are included in the mini course, you can break them down 5 minutes at a time. There's ample amounts of work in there for you to be able to just take your time, for you to be able to break it up 5 minutes at a time and just do, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, or 5 minutes a day, whatever it is. But the point is to stop and take the time to refuel so that you can really start to operate from your own sense of radiance and rest and pleasure, and not just waiting until you've done enough to be able to reward yourself with something that is a vital fuel for you to be able to keep moving. So I'd love for you to head to the link in my bio. You can purchase the $9 mini course. It is $9, and there's probably over like $250 or $300 worth of content in there. You all, I am very, very committed to you all having access to this work and for it to be simple for you to jump in. I want it to be a no-brainer. So I want you to go ahead and grab that $9 mini course. If you haven't, if you grab the course, there's also an option for you to join me for a 1-hour live messy movement session on the 6th of May. And that option is you just pay $29 for that, or you can pay $9 for the self-study course. I'm gonna go through the comments here to see if there's any questions, and then we will end for the day. Let's see here. Thank you all so much for joining me. Oh my God, so many folks. Hi, hi, hi. Yes, the little things that count, truly, in the midst of it all. Yes, 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 yes. Realizing that, pushing through to refuel and refuel while not feeling it. Yes, praise. Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. If you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to answer or to ask in this space, go ahead and send me a DM. And again, you guys, go ahead and go to the link in my bio, purchase the $9 mini course, jump in. There's plenty of tools and practices for you to be able to, get in there, get involved, find something that works for you for the day. There's journal prompts, there's a coaching lecture, there's movement courses, and then there's also the additional option for you to join us for the live class on May 6th. It's 1 hour. We get in there. We had a great time the last time, so y'all don't want to miss this. I think you really gonna love it. And thank y'all again for joining me today. Someone wrote here, a recent affirmation I wrote is, I affirm that pleasure and joy is a necessity, not a luxury. Yes, 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 y'all. Yes, it is a necessity, not a luxury. And that is the perfect note for us to end on today. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I hope that you have a great week. Bye.